This conference will now be recorded.
Now, before we begin, I guess everybody is clear with baseline configuration for accounts payable, baseline configuration for accounts receivable, vendor master creation manually, vendor master creation using LTMC and LSMW. Similarly, customer master creation using manual creation, LTMC creation, LSMW creation. Make sure you're good at all these three methods of creating vendor and customer master prerequisite. After that, we have to start creating transactions in the vendor customer account and then see the financial impact of vendor customer postings. Okay, now since we have the vendor accounts already created few and customer accounts are also already created a few. First, we will begin with vendor account postings, then we will switch on to customer account postings. Now, before we begin, first we need to understand what vendors we exactly have. How do you know that your vendor master record? Now, if you see vendor master list, let's say your client is asking, I want to know the list of vendors that are currently available or that are currently existing in our company. Now, you may get these kind of a queries at any given point of time, on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, on yearly basis. Your client might or your user might ask you to give the list of vendors that are currently existing in the system for a particular company code. How you are going to generate the vendor list from the system? This is something that you need to understand, very important from the master data point of view. We understood any report related to any transaction or any master record is extracted from SAP Easy Access screen. Let's go to SAP Easy Access. In SAP Easy Access, you will have to go to SAP menu. Inside the SAP menu, go to accounting. Inside the accounting, go to financial accounting. In financial accounting, accounts payable, because anything related to vendor is straight away related to AP or accounts payable. In accounts payable, we are talking about master record because we want vendor master list. Go to master record. Here you have display option FK03. Let's click on this. If you click on this, this is giving you display supplier, which means you can display a single vendor here. But our requirement is to see the complete list of vendors. So this is not the point that we are looking for. And there are no other options here. Only one display option is there. I'll minimize master record and then let me go to information system. We understood already, any report that you want, you will have to open information system. Open this information system. Here you have reports for accounts payable accounting. These are all your SAP standard reports. Here you have one selection called master data. Open this master data. If you open this, you will get different reports available here. All these ALR reports are SAP standard reports. Okay, in your interview, people might ask you, what are the SAP standard reports? Then you tell a single 3-digit word answer, ALR reports. Because most of your SAP standard reports will contain this ALR text in it. So that is why even in real time we call it as ALR standard report. First, let us click on this vendor list. If I double click on this and if I put our company code DEIN, let me click on execute to check what information system is giving. If you execute, you are getting certain information. Vendor account number is 100 101, 100 102, 100 201, 301 590 690, something like this. You are getting the data, but is this in a proper format that you are actually looking for?
No.
You see this is not in a proper format that you can actually relate. Assuming you have around 1000 vendors in your organization, or you have around 500 vendors, which is a quite common number. Every organization will have minimum 500 vendors, because number of vendor list for any organization is less than your number of customers. Customer number will be more, vendor number will be less in any organization, because you will be purchasing from limited vendors, selling to maximum customers. If you have 500 vendors, are we able to extract vendor report from the system? No. Is there any option to download this? If I go to list, save, send, if I go to local file, I got this option. From here, what I'll do, I'll try to click on text with the tab, continue. So here what I'll do, I'll select the path as desktop. I want to save this on desktop, and file name, I'll pick the path desktop, and file name I'll put when. Now if you see, this is not coming directly in the Excel format. This is not coming directly in the Excel format, and to do a quick workaround or simple tweaking in the system, while saving, you are going to put vendor master dot xls. Okay, while saving it from the text format, if you don't put anything, this will get created as a notepad document, but your intention is to create this as an Excel sheet. For that, while creating the file name, put file name dot xls, so that this will get created as an Excel worksheet. Put this dot xls and click on save. On the desktop, now this will be saved with vendor master dot xls. Click on generate. If it is asking for any permission, just allow this. Now go to desktop. Here is the file vendor master. Double click on this. You get this pop-up message. Click on yes for this pop-up. This is how you are able to get the data from SAP. For vendor master, this is what you are able to get from standard system. But are we okay with this? Is this meaningful? Yes, no? If you are a user, if you are a business, will you accept this?
No, no, sir.
You will not be okay with it, because currently you have, if you see, one, two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8. Currently there are only 7 vendors available, but only for 7 vendors, this is how you are getting the output, which is not in a meaningful format. No client will accept this information. Alright, when you know this, this is the standard report from SAP. And if I go back, let's see another report. This is your address list. Let us open the address list, but this address list, it is clearly asking you to input vendor account. If I don't put any vendor account, this will give me the address list for all the vendors. But your intention is to pull out the data only for selected vendors. Let's say we'll pass this vendor code and then execute the report. This is how you are getting the vendor address. Is this meaningful? No, right? You want to have data in a format which you can utilize for your further analysis purpose. It's not that every time you take the data from a system, you will have to modify it further. That way, nobody wants the information from the system. Right? Now, in short, if you look at the master data things from here, do you have any standard report which you can directly use as a vendor master list? You have standard reports for vendor master, but
We
that
use
cannot be used. Right? It's not in a usable format. Correct? You have this report from standard system, but this is not This is not in a format which you can accept or which you can start working on for your day-to-day reporting requirement or for your day-to-day business purposes. Now, if you know that this is how standard report is coming, but how your vendors or how your clients or users are dealing with your vendor master list on a daily basis. Now, this is where you will be talking about customizations or custom reports. Alright. Now, what if you get information or a report like this for 500 vendors? Only for 6 vendors, you got how many rows filled up? For 6 vendors, it has filled up around 85 records. Correct? You see the Excel sheet, there are 85 rows filled up for 8 or 7 vendors. If you have 500 vendors, so imagine the number of rows that you are going to have. But your ideal expectation is for 500 vendors, you want 500 rows. Agree? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
If
Yes,
it is
sir.
vendor number one, I want to have everything in single row. Name one, name two, address, city, state, reconciliation account, account group, everything you want in a single report. All the information that you require for your analysis purpose. Now, these kind of requirements you will be gathering from your client user during the initial stage, and then you will develop a simple report. These are not the complicated reports. These are simple reports which are developed by the technical team, for whom you need to give the proper logic and the format. Now the same thing, same vendor master report. Now let us check from the tables. How you will check the vendor report from table? To access any table, SE16N is the transaction code. Go to SE16N. In SE16N, you have two tables related to vendor master. We already discussed. Anybody remember tables for vendor master?
LFA1. LFA1.
LFA1,
LF,
LFA1.
right. LFA1 and LFB1. Whenever you want to pull out the vendor reports from the backend, which means from the table for a particular company code, you need to use two tables. LFA1 and LFB1. Can I use any table first, or I need to go in a sequence? The expectation or the requirement is to pull out all the vendors from company code DEIN. I can use any two tables, or I need to use tables in a sequential order. First, let me put LFA1. If I put LFA1 table, the table description is supplier master general selection. Supplier master general selection. And if I put LFB1, LFB1 is talking about vendor master company code. Is your requirement to generate the vendor master of all the company codes or of a selected company code?
Selected company.
Your requirement is always selecting vendors from a particular company code or from a selected company code, for which you should always take the number of vendors from your particular company code. Let's say you want to see the vendor master list for DEIN company code. Always go to LFB1 table first, pass your company code here, DEIN, and click on execute. It is giving you the 8 vendor master records. Now you will see the number of hits is 8 or number of records 8. These are the vendor numbers. There are 8 vendors. Now you need to copy these 8 vendors. And let me go back. LFA1. If I directly execute this, how many vendors you got? 470. Correct? If you directly run in system, currently there are 470 vendors, but for your company code you have only 8 vendors. Now, if your client is asking for the vendor master from a particular company code, are we supposed to give data directly from LFA1 table, or we need to first take data from LFB1 and then take the data from LFA1? What is the ideal sequence?
LFB1 and LFA1.
Right. First, you need to take the data from LFB1, download the LFB1 data. From that, you will get to know the vendor list of a particular company code only. Take only those vendor list. Now, once you take the vendor list from LFB1 table, copy the vendor list from LFB1 download and then come to LFA1 table. You will find a vendor selection tab here. Go to vendor selection and here you will find more or multiple selection, right arrow mark. Click on this arrow mark. Whatever you copied on your Excel sheet or wherever, you would have done Control C. Here you don't do Control V, instead you click on this clipboard icon. Bottom right you have this icon, upload from clipboard, or Shift F12 is the shortcut key. Click on this. Whatever you copied will get pasted here and you will get the count of the copy records. 8 records are copied here. Click on transfer and now click on execute. Now this is your vendor master. Now you can download these reports. If I go to spreadsheet, continue, export, yes, allow the permissions. This is how you get the vendor report. Now if you look at this report and if you look at this report, which one is more convenient? From ALR report or from table?
From table.
Right, this report is easy to access. You have everything in a proper manner. Right, but you'll have a lot of fields here. What you are going to do, you are going to develop a simple report. With the help of the ABAP technical consultant, you will be developing a simple report which will give you the data in the same format. This is about your master data. Now, if somebody is asking you how do you see the list of vendor master of a particular company code, always tell in your client you had a Z report. You have a customized report to pull out the vendor master. Because in your vendor master, you may want to have different information. When I say different information, now this is my vendor. I want to know what is the bank account information of this particular vendor. Possible or not? If you're talking about a vendor, from vendor you are going to purchase. Whenever you are purchasing from vendor, you need vendor name and vendor complete contact information, in short address. Now, for all your purchases from a vendor, you need to make the payment to the vendor. If you have to make payment to the vendor, you need to ensure vendor bank information is updated. Now, I want this vendor bank information in this report only. How do I get it? For your vendor bank information, there will be a different table. Right? If you look at this, what are the first 2 digits of the table?
Vendor country.
First 2 digits of the table.
LF.
LF is the first two digits of the table. Always what you do, take the first 2 digits, put a star. Take first 2 digits of the table name, put a star and click on this drop down option or F4 on the keyboard. When you do this, you will get different table list starting from LF. From this you need to pull out based on your requirement what kind of information you want to see on your vendor report. Accordingly, you need to pull out data from different tables and consolidate in a single sheet, for which you have to know basic Excel also. Basic Excel formulas like VLOOKUP and all you must be good at. This is another requirement for any FICO consultant. Basic Excel you must be good at. Let's say if you want bank information, you will have to look at bank here. You can use Control F here, search bank, it will display here. What I did Control F, I put bank. Now I got this vendor master bank details from which table? LF, BK table. Now these tables is what you will be questioned in your interview. In your interview, your interviewers will ask you in which table vendor bank details will get stored. So you will have to answer LFBK is the table where your vendor bank information will get stored. You get these kind of questions in your interviews, especially from your accounts payable part. Clear? Here if you put vendor account and when you execute, this is how your vendor bank account information will display. Now your client says in a single report, I want all this information. When you are developing a report, you need to ensure in the same report you get all these fields. This bank information is also added in your report. Accordingly, you need to work with the technical team or a ABAP consultant. This is where you are going to work on customizations or FS, nothing but functional specifications. You must have heard people talking about FS or functional specification. These are the simple requirements that we will get in your real environment, or to begin with, these kind of requirements we need to think, understand, so that you will be clear with how functional specifications are prepared, how you are going to list out the business process or business requirement, how you are going to extract the data from different tables. What logics you are going to use, what formulas you are going to use is what you have to write in your FS document. But before you write any FS document, before you work on any customization, always remember you must know the process. If you do not know the process, it is impossible to write the functional spec. Because if you have to write the functional specification for the same requirement, you have to use the same three tables, LFA1, LFB1 and LFBK. And your ABAP consultant will ask you, how do I get the data, in which format I need to put. Because manually, if you are able to take out something, the same thing you are going to develop a report. Report is nothing but the manual work you are automating. If you are unable to do something manually, you will not be able to do it automatically. Right? Manual things only we will be automating. First, you need to understand how this report is prepared for one vendor manually, which means the sequence you have to know. First, I need to go to which table, what information I need to take from this table. Okay, once I take this information, next what I need to do, I need to open another table. Okay, from which table I need to go, what information I need to pass in the next table, what output I will have to take. After this, what I need to do, I need to club these two records. First table output, second table output. Do I need all the output fields or I need only selected output fields? This list I need to make a list. After this, I need to go to bank related table. In this bank table, what I need everything or I need selected information. If I need selected information, I need to know the field names. If I go back, against every field, this is your field name, this is your field label. If you talk about vendor, vendor is called as LIFNR, LIFNR. In your functional specification document, nowhere you are going to write these field names. Instead, you are going to write all the technical names. You need to mention, go to LFBK table, pass LIFNR. You'll have to put like this, pass LIFNR, and then you put and execute the report. From the output, extract, let's say bank country, this field, bank key, this field. Like this you'll have to input, or like this you'll have to mention in your functional spec document, which means you have to make sure that you are focusing on field names plus technical names. It's not about always you remember vendor, because vendor technical name is LIFNR. When you're writing a functional spec, you are supposed to put all these technical names and the table names. Clear? We will write sample functional specifications. There you will understand clearly how exactly you will write FS. Clear with vendor masters? Right?
Yes, sir.
Now I want all of you to do a simple workaround. Now in your company code, whatever the vendors that you have created so far, make sure you are able to prepare a report in Excel sheet. If you have, let's say, some 8 vendors, I want 8 vendors information in one Excel sheet. You go to LFA1 table, download LFB1 download. I don't know how you will download, whether you go LFA1 first, LFB1 first, it is up to you. But make sure your output should contain only the vendors which are related to your company code. Get that information and prepare a report in the Excel sheet. Once you prepare the data in Excel sheet, make sure empty rows like this, it has got no value here. These kind of things should not be there on your Excel sheet. If there is no data, you're not supposed to have those fields. If you see, there are a lot of things here which are blank. Now out of this, what is required, what is not required, you have to know. It's not about going to a table, passing the information, downloading the record, and you tell that my vendor report is ready. That is not called as a report. If you send the same report as it is to your client or to your user, your immediate question will be, why these many fields are blank? You cannot tell those are not relevant, ignore it. When you want me to ignore it, why are you sending it to me? Alright, any information which is not relevant, you are not supposed to keep it in the report which you are sharing with your client or to your user. Irrelevant information, you have to remove it. Right, because there is no data in this, there is no point of keeping this. This will unnecessarily increase the size of your file, and if your user is straight away removing this, assuming from here no data, they might remove the required field also. So make sure you put report in a different way, wherein the other person who is receiving it will feel that, okay, this data is what I am looking for. Instead, they should not feel why so many blanks are there. Don't expect that you will get a cross question, you will get different replies from your client when you send any information. Make sure you send information in a right or appropriate manner. Clear? Pull out the vendor information of LFA1, LFB1. Make sure you are able to consolidate both the reports. And we will see one of your reports, or once you prepare the report, you can take a screenshot, put it in our group so that others can see how you have extracted the report. Let me close this now. Understood, right? What you need to do for vendor report?
Yes, sir.
Now, once you have master record, now what we need to do, we need to perform vendor postings. FI only. This is your vendor postings, FI only, which means your vendor will have postings from logistics also, which is nothing but your FIMM integration related transactions. We will be posting FIMM integration transactions later on once we have set up the MM related configuration. So as of now, we will be focusing only on vendor postings, FI related entries only. First thing that you need to do is you need to create a vendor and you need to perform certain transactions. Now, I think somewhere we have listed vendor transactions, right? I'm not sure where, in which sheet we did that. Otherwise, let's quickly list out certain things. Let us take this vendor that we have created just now. Export. Okay, let us take any one vendor. Let's take this Toshiba. I'll copy this vendor number. Let us pull certain reports related to vendor. Now, if you wanted to look at the transactions posted in a vendor account, you need to use FBL 1N transaction code. Let's open FBL 1N. In this, you put your vendor number and your company code. Click on execute. It is giving no items selected. Vendor account is created, but there are no postings in this vendor account. Let me take this vendor number. And vendor name is Toshiba. Okay, this is the vendor. Now here let us make certain postings and then check how your vendor account is displaying various transactions, how this is having the financial implications. I'll say on certain transactions like June 1st, June 2nd, let's say June 4th, June 8th, June 10th, June 11th. I've taken 6 dates. On 1st, I'll put purchase. On 2nd, I'll put purchase. I'll put purchase 1, purchase 2. June 4th, I'll take return 2. 9th, I'll put payment 1. 10th, I'll put purchase 3. 11th, I'll put return 3, and today I'll put final payment. Okay, these are the transactions that let us try to experiment. On 1st June, let's say purchase number 1, I'll write as some 10,000 rupees. Now on 2nd, which is my purchase number 2, I'll say 17,500. On 4th, I am writing return 2. Return 2 is nothing but purchase 2 returns. This 2 I am trying to represent. This purchase number 2 will have a return, so I have put return number 2. Return number 2 is representing return from purchase number 2. What is the purchase 2 value?
17,500.
17,500. Let's assume that from this purchase number 2 there is a return. I'll put some 2,300 returned from the purchase 2. Next one, payment number 1. For payment number 1 is representing to invoice number 1. What is your purchase number 1 value? 10,000. Payment 1 means 10,000. Because we are indicating this sequence 1, 2 to identify the original transaction, purchase or payment or credit memo or returns. Next one, purchase number 3, I'll put 23,800. Return number 3, I'll put 4,000, or I'll put 1,920. Next one is final payment. This is something that we need to figure out what will be the final payment considering these transactions for a particular vendor from last 2 weeks. Now, if you take this in a different format, in the accounting format, you need to understand. This is your vendor account. In your vendor account, you are going to have debit balances. You are also going to have credit balances. I'm only writing debit credit here, debit and credit. When you are purchasing something, your vendor account is debit or credit on purchases?
Credit, sir.
When you purchase, your vendor is debit or credit?
Vendor is credit, sir.
Vendor is credit. So amount is 10,000. I'll put this amount on the credit side, 10,000. Second one is your purchase number 2. For any purchase, your vendor account is always credit. This will also be 17,500 credit. Third one, returns. When you return, your vendor account will be debit or credit.
Debit.
Debit, sir.
When you're returning, your vendor account will be debit, 2,300. When you're making payment, debit or credit to your
Debit.
vendor account?
Debit.
Payment, your vendor account will be debit. Purchase number 3. For purchases, debit or credit?
Credit.
It will be credit. Purchase number 3, 23,800. Next one, returns. Debit or credit?
Debit.
Returns is debit 1,920. And then you need to find out the final payment. When you're talking about final payment, you're talking about settlement with the vendor. You have to settle the balance amount to the vendor. Considering these transactions, what will be your vendor current outstanding? For that, let us identify the total debit in vendor account, total credit in vendor account. If you look at the difference between debit and credit, what is the difference? This minus this, 37,080. 37,080 is the difference amount. We need to put 37,080 here, correct? This is the balancing figure between debit and credit. Now, if you put this 37,080 here, 37,080 here, these two should become equal so that your vendor account will become 0. When your vendor account becoming 0, representing there is no outstanding in this vendor account, you are not liable to pay anything to the vendor. Same thing if you do it here, whenever you do any purchase, your vendor account is debit or credit. When you are purchasing, your vendor account is debited or credited?
Credited, sir.
Credit is positive number or negative number?
Negative.
Credit is a negative number, make this number negative, minus. Purchase, again it's a credit, credit is negative number. You need to see the impact only from the vendor point of view, don't look at the other side. We're talking about purchase, see this purchase only from the vendor point of view, how this purchase transaction reflect in your vendor account. If your purchase account, if your purchase transaction is resulting a credit in vendor, put the amount as credit, because we are currently looking at the impact only from the vendor account point of view. When you're doing any return, your vendor account will be debited. Debit means always a positive number. For positive number, there will be no plus minus sign. It's a plain number, always represent positive sign. Payment is again a positive number because payment is debit to vendor. Purchase number 3 is credit. Any credit is a negative number. Return is a debit to vendor, positive number. Last one, payment. Payment is negative. Payment is also debit to the vendor. Now, taking all these transactions, if I do a sum, I have to get 0. Are we getting 0 balance?
Yes, sir.
Now, when you pass or when you post these entries in your vendor account, you have to get the same numbers. You have to get the same number. Clear with this numbers first? Any doubt with these transactions, this vendor account, this number calculation, how we understood that it has become 0? Any questions on this? Okay, no questions, fine. Next, what you need to do is you need to know what is your vendor outstanding on a particular key date. What is your vendor outstanding on a particular key date? On what date we have settled it to the vendor? When did we settle to the vendor? On what date?
1st June.
12th June is where we settle to the vendor. Before we did the settlement to the vendor on 12th June, what is the vendor outstanding?
3780.
Before you did the settlement or before you made the payment, your vendor account was showing an outstanding of 37,080, correct? On 7th June, what is the outstanding? If you run the vendor report on 7th, as on 7th, if I want to know what is my vendor outstanding, how do you know? Now you need to take the transactions until 7. Until 7 is here. What is the sum? 25,200. As on 7th, your vendor outstanding is 25,200. If I want to know the vendor outstanding as on 8th, vendor outstanding is 15,200. You are able to see the number here, the total. Similarly, if I want to know the vendor outstanding as on 10th, vendor outstanding has become 39,000. And if I check vendor outstanding as on 11th, this is your 37,080. Now, like this, on any particular day, make sure you're able to find out what is the current outstanding of your vendor account. This is one of the basic requirement from your accounts payable. If you're unable to understand what is your vendor outstanding on a particular date, it is very difficult for us to understand what is actually happening in your accounts payable, how your vendor accounts are analyzed in real environment. Because there is something called reconciliation. For your vendor account, this is done for every vendor separately. For every vendor, there is something called vendor account reconciliation. They will validate whether we are posting all the transactions or not. Clear? For that to understand, first we need to have some basic information. With this information, when we pass the entries, it is easy for us to verify whether our understanding is right or wrong in SAP. Because when you pull the reports from SAP based on your numbers, based on your dates, your SAP will have to pull the same number. If the numbers are coming different, either something is wrong in SAP or something is wrong in with your scenario or your understanding is wrong. You need to ensure whatever you are doing, whatever your understanding is correct, so that you can confidently explain it to the other person, especially in your interviews. Right, in your interview, the focus is only on the way you are explaining what you are what you are talking about. What kind of examples you are talking, what kind of scenarios you are explaining me will give me a clear instruction, clear indication whether you are having a good subject or not. Just forget about the experience. What kind of experience you are coming from is not coming into the picture. What kind of knowledge, what kind of explanation, what kind of examples, scenarios you are talking about, that matters a lot in your interviews. Right, now let us start posting these transactions in the system. Now all your purchases are nothing but invoices. Purchases are invoices and your returns are credit memos. Payments are outgoing payments. Clear? We call purchase as invoice, returns as credit memo, payment as outgoing payment, because you have to clearly differentiate. SAP will not understand when you talk about payment, because payment is of two types. One is your payment receipt, the other one is payment making. If you are giving the payment or you are receiving the payment. For vendor, are we giving the payment or are we receiving the payment? For vendor, what will happen? Payment receipt or payment, we will give payment or we will receive payment?
We will give payment.
For vendor, we will give the payment. Make sure whenever you are giving the payment, that is called as outgoing payment. Whenever you are receiving the payment, that is called as incoming payment. We will be using the terms called incoming payment, outgoing payment in SAP. Now, first what I will do, I will pass certain entries. First entry, vendor invoices we will pass. For vendor invoices, you will be using F-43 transaction. What is the other transaction for vendor invoice?
FB60.
FB60.
60.
Similarly, for credit memos, what is the transaction codes? F
Basic.
65.
Basic.
the other one. 43 series, 4 series, what is 141?
Yes.
Yes.
And then this will be FB65. For vendor payments,
F-50.
So it is 53, 58.
F-53, F-58,
F-11.
correct? F-110. There will be different ways to record the transactions. How you want to record the transaction depends on the business requirement. It is not that I can use any transaction. It depends on the business requirement, how and what transaction they want to use it. But there are different ways of doing the same thing in SAP. Everywhere you are posting the vendor invoice only. If I post from F-43 or if I post from FB60, the same accounting entry is going to come. Purchase account debit, vendor account credit. Then what is the difference? The way you post the entry, the kind of fields, the kind of screen that you are looking at is different. Apart from that, there is no difference. You need to understand, you need to focus on what is the financial impact that you are getting. Do not focus on the screen. This screen is easy, this screen is difficult. You are not supposed to focus on it because you are not becoming an end user. You don't want to join a company as an end user wherein you will post 200 invoices, 100 invoices every day. That is not your target. So don't look at what is there on the screen. Focus why you are using these two screens, what is the difference between this screen, that screen, and which screen you will recommend it to the user. Okay, if one screen is user friendly, you can complete the transaction quickly. The other screen may not be user friendly. It may take a little more time to complete a transaction. So you need to understand why there is a difference and which report or which screen will be used in the real environment. These kind of things is what you need to focus on, not on the data entry, because we do not want to become an end user. So let us not focus on data entry more. When you are posting a transaction, your intention is to understand the impact of it. What configuration you have done so that your entries are accepted. Once you post the entry, if there are any corrections, what you are going to do. And once the entries are posted, what kind of reports are extracted, and if you have the sufficient reports in the system or not. If yes, what are the reports? Where are they? If no, how you are going to bring those reports? This is what you have to think. This is what you have to understand, so that you will be able to talk in a right consultant manner to anybody. Otherwise, when we talk, we will sound like an end user. So you should not sound like an end user. You should sound like a consultant. For that, the way you look at the system, the way you look at the transaction should be different right from the beginning. Right? First, let me pass this entry, purchase invoices. First, I'll go to the basic transaction F-43. Let me go to F-43. I'll open another screen. F-43. If I go to F-43, this is what I am seeing. I am seeing enter vendor invoice header data. Now, if you look at this screen, is this similar to your F-02 GL posting screen? Correct?
Yes,
Huh?
sir.
This is similar to F-02 where we posted GL account. Let me open F-02 also. This is your F-02. If you look at both the screens, there is no difference. Field, everything is the same, except there is a change. Here document type coming as KR by default, here SA by default. Next one, posting key by default 40 here, by default 31 here. Apart from this document type, posting key, do you find any difference?
No, sir.
Apart from this, there is no difference. Now, in short, when you write any accounting entry, there is no difference. These are called JV posting screens. JV, what is JV full form? Anybody know what is JV?
Journal voucher.
General voucher.
Journal voucher,
General
right?
voucher.
In every client, in every business, this is a common word that is used by all the users or all your clients. They will tell we need to pass a JV. So when you're talking about JV, they are talking about manual entry. They might ask you what will be the accounting entry, what is the financial impact, how do I pass the manual JVs and all. You need to understand what they exactly mean and what they want to achieve from the system. First, you need to understand what they are talking and then respond according to their query. If they're asking something and you're explaining something, that will give a negative impression. So let us not get into such kind of a negative impression. Always make sure when the other person is talking, you are trying to understand what their query is, what their intention is. According to that, you try to respond. Not that based on the topic heading, he is talking about accounts payable, you tell whatever you know about accounts payable. That will give very, very bad impression. Especially when you're in the interview and when you're in project, when you're talking to any user client, always try to understand what is the question, what they are asking you about. Think whether you understood the question or not. If you're not clear, ask them to repeat the question. They will repeat, whether it is in your interview or it is with your client or your user. But don't feel that if I ask again, they might feel something and then you don't try to answer whatever you understood half. Make sure confidently ask them to repeat the question. You are not clear with the question. Everybody will repeat the question, including your interviewer. Clear? Huh? Right. This is especially you need to follow in your interviews. If you are not clear with the question, ask them you have not understood the question. They will repeat the question in a different way. Either they'll ask the same question or they will change their wordings and they'll make you to understand. I can't put a question that you cannot understand and then I expect an answer from you. That is wrong. So nobody will do that way. If you're not clear with the question, it is your responsibility to ask them to repeat the question. They will repeat the question and then they'll expect an answer from you. Make sure they are so flexible. Every interviewer is flexible to repeat the question. Nobody will take it wrong that you're asking them to repeat the question. But for every question, you cannot tell them to repeat. But for certain questions, if you're not clear, make sure you get the question repeated and then you answer according to the question based on your understanding. Now, when we see this, there are two things that we already understood in the previous sessions. On this particular transaction code F-43, there is a default document type of KR. There is a default posting key of 31. How are these coming? These are coming from a SAP standard setting or we have customized this?
SAP standard.
SAP standard. From which T code? Anybody remember from where these two things are coming? Default document type, default posting key.
F-02, F-43.
There is a T code where the
This is
default
like
post.
31st.
Sorry,
OBC4.
OBC4.
OBU2.
Not OBC4. BU2.
OB87,
OBL2.
OB.
OB87,
OBA.
7.
OBA7. No. This is important. You can tell this as one of your support ticket in your interviews. Most of you already did this.
Sir, can you repeat the question?
OBU1.
OB7.
OBU1.
OB.
OBU1, correct. So we were talking about in this screen F-43. By default, you are getting a KR document type. By default, you are getting posting key 31. From where these are coming? If I want to change document type KR to some other thing, posting key from 31 to some other thing, where can I change? So these two are coming from SAP standard setting OBU1. In OBU1, for all the transaction codes, by default, a document type, a posting key is predefined. If you look at transaction code F-43, which is here, for F-43, you will find default document type as KR, default posting key as 31. That is why on this screen, when you are here, KR and 31 is appearing. This is because you are trying to pass vendor invoice. For vendor invoices, KR is the document type. If you open the drop down, if you look at the description for KR, KR is representing vendor invoice. KR is representing vendor invoice. When a user is opening F-43, representing or it indicates your user is trying to pass vendor invoice. For vendor invoice, by default, system will take the document type KR. This is just a proposed document type. If you want, you can change from KR to any other thing. This is a default document type that appears. Similarly, when you are trying to post a vendor invoice, first thing that you need to do is you need to put vendor from whom you are purchasing. So when you're writing the accounting entry, your accounting entry tells purchase account debit, vendor account credit, correct? For purchases, your entry will be purchase debit, vendor credit. If you write the accounting entry manually, do you write vendor first or purchase first? What do you write? Manual entry.
Purchase first.
You will write purchase first because you always go based on the debit credit logic. You put debit first and then you put credit next. But in this F-43, it is credit first, correct? What is the posting key here?
30%.
What is the posting key? 31. If you open this posting key, let me open the list. If you look at this 31 is account type V represents vendor. V represents vendor and the debit credit indicator is C. C represents credit. 31 means VC vendor credit. Clear? When you give posting key 31, system understands 31 means vendor credit. Now in your accounting entry, system is asking you to put credit first. Now here most of the people will get confused. Here if you are changing to 40, then what you are doing is wrong. Here some people, they change from 31 to 40, they put the entry. It is correct technically, but practically when you see from the SAP point of view, that is wrong. Because you have to see it in a different way. Try to understand SAP screen from a different perspective so that you will be able to understand logically. You are trying to record vendor invoice. For vendor invoice, KR is the document type. System is asking you to from whom you purchased. You're talking about vendor invoice. Put the vendor from whom you purchased. You will put a vendor, let's say Toshiba. In the next screen, you put what you purchased from this vendor. Okay, so that way you have to understand. First you are writing from whom you are purchasing, next you are writing what you purchased, but do not change the posting keys. Tomorrow when you are giving training to your users, when you are in a project, you are supposed to provide end user training to the business users. As a consultant, that is one of your responsibility activity in a project. There you might get a question by your users, why 31 we are using, can we change 31 to 40? And for these kind of questions, especially you get these kind of questions from your user. User is all about your data entry, reports, master records. They will be asking you different questions related to master data, transaction, reports. Make sure you are capable enough, you have sufficient information with you to answer your end user queries. because you are the one who is going to conduct user trainings, maybe on accounts payable, receivable, GL, asset, on any topic. But you will not be training on every area. You will split between the different people and then you will conduct the training sessions. On the training session, you will have to explain everything, how your vendor invoice will be created, and when you are giving this training, your training session will get recorded. Your training session will get recorded. When I say your training session will get recorded, it's not a video recording, it's your Teams recording or something like that. Your screen will get recorded. You will have to prepare the user manual for it. So preparation of user manual, preparation of configuration document, conducting the user training is your responsibility as a FICO consultant when you are in a project. Make sure you are not following a user manual, you are not following a configuration document. Tomorrow you have to prepare it. When you know that tomorrow you need to prepare it, today you don't follow something, so that tomorrow you will have to follow something else. Right? Make a habit of how these documentations are prepared and how you will document this, so that it will be easy for you to prepare when you are in a project and you will not have any confusions, you will not get into any troubles. Otherwise, we will have to suffer when you are in a project. Okay. Now, before we pass the entry, there are certain things that you need to understand. Document type is what? For vendor invoice, what document type are we using? KR we are using, and you need to put vendor account. Vendor account is already available. And to complete the data entry, you need a debit, you need a credit. Here we are only talking about purchase one. What did we purchase? I'm talking about purchase one from Toshiba. I know what is my credit. Credit will go to Toshiba account, but debit is purchase. Purchase, what did I purchase? Do you have the right information?
No, sir.
You do not have the information what is purchased. If you do not have the right information, do not post the entry, because you must know where to debit. If you do not know where to debit, please do not post any accounting entries without knowing where to debit. Just like that, we are not supposed to post it, because any entry that you post will have the impact on your P&L, will have impact on your balance sheet. In short, there is a financial impact. You need to understand this purchase, is this a P&L impact or a balance sheet impact? For that, you need to understand what did you purchase. Let's say what GL accounts we have. Accordingly, we'll put something here, FS00 DEIN Let's take this account, printing and stationery. Okay, let's take this account, printing and stationery. So what I'll do, printing and stationery. I'm going to use this account for everything. Wherever I'm talking about purchase, I'm representing printing and stationery. This is your purchase. This is your purchase. Clear? Now, come here. You need to know the date. On what date you purchased this? On 1st June. Make sure you are going to put the same date as your this one. 1st June document date, 1st June as your posting date, document type is KR, DEIN is your company code, posting period based on the posting date is auto detected, currency INR, this is your purchase currency. Next one, reference. In reference, I'll put the same thing, purchase one, header text also purchase one. After this, when I press enter, there is a message, posting period 6 is not open. I want to know which posting period variant I need to use. Just double click on this error message. When you double click on this, this will give you in the diagnosis period 6 of year 2023 is not open for the posting period variant DEIN. From this variant, period 6 is not open. Let me go to period opening screen. OB52. In OB52, this is the posting period variant. Period number 6 is not open. I'll change from 5 to 6 everywhere. 6. Now I'll copy all this 6 and then I'll paste here. Enter, save it. Now period number 6 is open. Remember, you keep only one period open, not all the periods. Period number 6 is open. Let us go to the transaction. Now if I hit enter, this error message should disappear. Let me press enter on the screen. Now this is giving another message asking us to input number range 19 is missing. Now when you're practicing these errors, you have to see practically, but once you practice at least one or two company codes, when you understand these kind of errors are not supposed to come. If these errors are coming, then there is a mistake from your side as a consultant. You have not done your job correctly if these errors are coming in the real environment. These things of number range maintenance is part of cutover activity. Before you hand over system to the client, you need to ensure all the number ranges are created directly in the production system. To create the number range, you have the transaction code. What is the T code?
FBN1.
FBN1 is what you need to create the T code. Now how system knows that I need to update number range 19? Why system is telling you 19? This is based on document type. Your number range is always connected to document type. What is the document type you are seeing here? KR. In which T code you will be able to check document types?
OBA7.
OBA7. Go to OBA7. It is KR. Select KR. Double click on KR. In KR, you have document number range as 19. Whenever you use document type KR, system will look for a number range from 19. Currently for 19, there is no number range maintained. You can maintain directly from here. Click on number range information. Company code is DEIN. Click on change intervals. Here if you see there is no number range interval 19. Insert number range interval. Put 19. Make sure you put number range always year specific except for your billing documents. Billing document is nothing but your SD module billing documents is not year specific, is a continuous numbering system. But apart from SD billing, everything is a year specific number range. From number to number, your document number range is always 10 digits. Whatever the number range you have, currently it is 19, you put 19 followed by all zeros, 19 followed by all nines. This is how you will maintain number range in your project. Clear? Strictly your document number range must be 10 digits connecting with your number range. If it is 19, 19 all zeros, 19 all nines. Whatever the number range you have, with that number range followed by zeros followed by nines. Save this. Enter. Now let's come back to the transaction. Let me hit enter. Now it is asking me to input the account number, which means error related to posting period is completed, error related to number range is also completed. Now it is asking, tell me from which vendor you want to purchase. You know the vendor number. This is your vendor number 100101 Toshiba. Put the vendor number here and then hit enter. You are on the next screen. On the next screen, you are able to see vendor number here and vendor name here, right? Immediate right to the vendor number, you have a GL account here. Because your vendor account is a subledger posting, every subledger posting will have the immediate general ledger posting or GL posting. From where system is picking this GL account number?
Vendor master data.
Right? In vendor master data, we have given reconciliation account. So whenever you post any transaction to this vendor account, that will automatically update your reconciliation GL account, so that your main ledger and sub ledger will always tally. If you don't put this GL account in your vendor master data, the data will not flow to main GL. If the data is not flowing to main GL, you will have financial implications. Your TB, PNL, balance sheet will not be correct. Your TB will not match, your balance sheet will not tally. So always ensure all the master records that you're creating, reconciliation account is mandatory, because you can create a vendor without reconciliation account also. If you can remove that field as not mandatory, even if you do not put reconciliation account, system will accept the vendor master creation. So such kind of mistakes are not supposed to happen. When you create vendor account groups, make sure in your vendor account group you have field status for the vendor account group. From the vendor account group field status, we need to ensure reconciliation account is mandatory. Every master record must have reconciliation account. So when you put any vendor account for posting, this GL account will come automatically. This is something which is not in your control. Now you need to put the amount, purchase amount. It is 10,000. Put 10,000 here. Enter. Baseline date is used for calculating your due date. Baseline date is used for calculating due date. Currently, we are not using payment terms concept. I'm not writing anything. I'm not explaining anything much on this. We will create another scenario with payment terms. There we will understand in detail about the dates. Next one, text I'll put same thing. Purchase one. Remember, this is your vendor account. For vendor account, you are not able to see profit center. You are not able to see cost center. There is no field called profit center, cost center, because your cost center or profit center is applicable for GL account. Currently, are we posting to a GL account or are we posting to a vendor account? Are we posting to a GL account now?
No, sir, vendor account.
We are not posting to a GL account. We are posting to a vendor account. Vendor account is called as a subledger account. For subledger account, your profit center, cost center is not applicable. Okay, think only from the profit center point of view, leave cost center as of now. Your profit center is not applicable, not relevant for vendor postings, because your vendor account is a subledger. Profit center is applicable only for the main ledger. Now in this entry you have two accounts. What are the two accounts that you are able to see in this? One is vendor account. What is the other account? GL account. Correct?
Yes.
One is vendor account, the other one is GL account. Profit center is applicable for vendor account or for GL account?
GL account.
Profit center is applicable for GL account. Alright. Now in this entry, is your vendor primary account or GL primary account? Which account you are manually feeding, vendor or GL?
Vendor.
Vendor account is what we are manually giving in the system. When you are passing the entry, or once you post the entry, there are two views in the entry. In your entry, there will be two views. Any idea what are those two views? Of any document, there are two views.
General view, ledger view.
One is your entry view, second one is
General ledger view.
GL view,
Ledger
general
view.
ledger view. Now entry view will take vendor and GL. Entry view will take vendor and GL. So this is nothing but debit and credit. One is debit, one is credit. General ledger view will take GL and GL. debit and credit. Is there any difference between these two, or there is no difference? Do you find any difference in entry view and GL view here on the Excel sheet?
Yes, sir.
Right? No, yes,
Yes,
both
sir.
are having debit and credit, but in entry view you have vendor and GL. In GL view you have GL and GL. Your profit center is applicable only for GL view, which means debit and credit must be GL account. Now here PC is not applicable for vendor, correct? Your profit center is not applicable for vendor. In this, PC is applicable for GL. First line you have vendor account. In the second line, this vendor is becoming a GL account, correct? On the debit side, if you see, if you look at the red highlighted one, on entry view this is GL account, on GL view this is a GL account. On entry view it's a vendor account, and GL view this is becoming a GL account, which means when you are posting, you are giving this. When system is updating the master record in the backend, it will take this account. Entry view it will consider this account, GL view it will consider this account. When this account is considered, profit center is not applicable. When this account is considered, profit center is applicable. Now this is where your document splitting will come into picture. Now as part of your initial configuration, we did something called document splitting, correct? Right, we defined some setting related to document splitting, you remember, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Just give me a minute, 1 minute. Sorry. Okay, you remember that we did document splitting related configuration as part of initial baseline config, correct? Now that document splitting configuration will come into picture here. When we talked about document splitting, we talked about three type of document splittings. What are those three document splittings?
Active, passive,
Active,
improvise.
passive,
Active,
passive.
passive, third one is zero
Zero
balance. Now when you post vendor invoice, or for active I'll put vendor invoices and credit memos. Clear? When you post any vendor invoice, when you post any vendor credit memo, which document splitting will be used?
payment.
Which document splitting? Active document splitting will be used. Now when you are using document splitting, the whole idea about document splitting is you have debit, you have credit. Here you have profit center, here you have no profit center. Do you have profit center on both the lines here in this example? Yes, no?
No.
No, sir.
No.
No.
Now I'll put one more record here. I'll put PC. I'll put PC here. In this, do you have profit center on both the records?
Yes.
Yes. Just say option 1. I'll put option 2. In which option there is no profit center, 1 or 2?
1.
In option number 1, profit center is missing. In option number 2, is profit center missing or it is filled up?
It's filled up.
It is filled up. When you have a document wherein debit credit has the profit center entered by the user, there is no splitting here. There is no splitting. Because system is going to do the document splitting when profit center is blank on any of the lines. If profit center is filled up by the user, there is no point of document splitting. System is not going to split the entry. Now, when there is no profit center either on the debit side or on the credit side, system cannot accept the entry without profit center. If there is no profit center, if you are able to post the entry, then it's a big mistake. No profit center, strictly no document entry in any project, in any organization. This is a mandatory requirement for every company code. In your company code, make sure system is not allowing you to post any document without profit center. If it is allowing, check the document splitting configuration. Somebody would have changed it, then it is behaving likewise. Now in this, if there is no profit center on the debit side or on the credit side, in short, if there is a missing profit center, system is going to split this. Document splitting is possible. Here system is going to look at these 3 ways. It will apply either active method or passive method or zero balance method. According to one of the methods, it will bring the profit center here. Based on the splitting, it will bring the profit center here. For that, first thing system is going to look at is your GL account. First thing system is going to look at is your GL account and document type. Clear? What system will check? It will check the GL account that you are using, and it will also check the document type that you are using. In this, if you see you are using, this is the GL account. What is the document type you are using?
Yeah.
AR.
Yeah.
So based on the GL account, based on the document type, your document splitting will work. Now credit we have given. Next we need to give debit. On the credit side for the vendor account, did we input profit center anywhere? No, right? We did not put profit center anywhere because there is no profit center field for vendor line item. Next one, we need to use debit. We assumed debit is your printing and stationery account. This is your printing and stationery GL account. Copy this account and let us debit this account. Hit enter. To bring the same amount, put star, and it is asking cost center is mandatory. Let us input one cost center. DEIN 011001. When I give cost center, system has automatically taken the profit center, correct? What is the profit center assigned? DEIN 01. Clear? Now, if you look at this entry, on the debit side, you have given profit center. On the credit side, there is no profit center. On the credit, there is no profit center. On the debit, there is a profit center. Now, our entry is option number 1 or option number 2? Vendor invoice.
Option number 1.
Our entry that we are trying to pass now is option number 1. because one side there is profit center, the other side there is no profit center. Now let us simulate the entry. When you simulate the entry, you are getting what is debit, what is credit. What kind of a simulation is this? What view is this called?
Entry view.
This is called as entry view. In entry view, system will not display what is the profit center, whether your document is balancing at profit center or not. It is only going to look at debit credit point of view. It will give you the total debit. It will give you the total credit. It will tell whether the debit credit is matching or not. If it is matching, the amount will be zero here. This is your transaction value is zero. Transaction value it is going to consider based on the debit total, credit total. If debit credit is equal, you will find zero. So according to entry, debit amount, credit amount are matching. But you have new GL account activated. We are using document splitting functionality. According to that, profit center is mandatory for every transaction. To check if profit center is filled up for all the transaction line items or not, you need to simulate general ledger. For that, go to document once again, click on simulate general ledger. If you click this, system is bringing this simulation screen. In this, if you see, do you find profit center on both the line items?
Yes, sir.
But while posting, did you put profit center 2 times or 1 time?
One time.
We put only 1 time. We put profit center for printing and stationery account, but for vendor account, we did not put. If you look at this, is this a vendor account? Your vendor account is Toshiba. This is your vendor account, 100-101 Toshiba. But is this 100-101 Toshiba or it's a GL account, GL name?
It's a GL account.
It's a GL account. Alright, here we understood in your GL view, debit and credit is GL account. In entry view, it is your vendor account and then GL account. Now let me go back. Now this is your GL account view. Let me go back. If I go back, you are able to see the entry view. Here it is giving you Toshiba and vendor account, correct? Yes, no? When you see Toshiba vendor account, this is your vendor information. This is your entry view. The moment I click on general ledger view, Toshiba vendor account is becoming GL account. GL account of that particular vendor account, whatever the reconciliation account that you mapped in that vendor account, is that appearing here, correct? As GL account. For this
Yes,
GL account, system is taking profit center automatically. This is taking the profit center based on the document splitting functionality. How profit center came here? Based on document splitting. Which document splitting? Active document splitting. How do you know that this is active document splitting? It is straightforward. For any vendor invoice, for any vendor credit memo, active document splitting is used. And to see that, you need to click on expert mode. Click on expert mode here. Now, if you see this, this is what it is showing. It is showing your document contains 2 line items, line item number 1, line item number 2. Line item number 1 is your vendor account. For vendor account, did we put any profit center or it was blank? Did we put any vendor account, any profit center for vendor? No, we did not put any profit center for vendor. Vendor account you have given first. So your first line item is posting key 31 vendor. That is why for posting key 31, vendor, it is telling split according to base rows. When you see this line split according to base rows, that means this document has been split. Now split according to base row is nothing but your active document splitting. Now second line item is talking about baseline. Wherever system gives you baseline, this baseline represents profit center is given manually by the user. For the printing and stationery, profit center we have given manually, correct? When you give cost center, you got profit center. It's a manual input. But for the vendor account, you did not give any profit center. System is telling you how profit center is derived here. This is called as profit center derivation based on document splitting functionality. Which document splitting functionality? Active document splitting functionality. It is telling line item number 1 split according to base rows. It is telling this is split based on baseline number 2. This baseline number 2 is here. Whatever the profit center that is appearing here, this profit center is taken here. Okay, now here you will see the splitting method used is 12. Business transaction used is 0300. Business transaction variant used is 0001. Document type is KR. Clear? These two things you'll have to remember. These three things: business transaction, transaction variant, and document type. Based on these three, system is going to detect which document splitting functionality to be applied. I'll close this. Clear with this accounting entry? This splitting slowly you will understand when we are posting different entries. Automatically you will understand the logics and all. Let me go back one more level and I'll try to post now. Now a document has been posted. When the entry is posted, what is the entry that we posted now? Invoice. In short, purchase entry is what we posted. When we posted a purchase entry, your vendor account is supposed to show a debit balance or a credit balance.
Credit balance.
Credit balance. Now let us go to this vendor line item report and I'll click on execute. Are you able to see 10,000 credit balance here in the vendor account? Toshiba vendor, this is the account number, this is the company code, this is the outstanding 10,000. If your vendor account shows a credit balance or a negative number, that means we are liable to pay to the vendor. You need to pay 10,000 to the vendor. Similarly, when we pass the other entries, system is going to adjust the amount according to this. This amount or this sum is auto adjusted based on the transactions that you are posting, debit, credit. I want all of you to create a vendor and then pass these entries. Everybody know how to post the entries, right? Except payment, you pass purchase and return entries. Clear? Try to pass the purchase entries and then return entries alone. Payment entries we will not be doing now. Before you make any payment entry, we need to understand two more concepts: petty cash, cash journal, and house bank concept. After this, we will be initiating vendor payments. Clear what to do?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Let me stop this recording.
Hello, sir.